Spread the fire, feed the mind. Welcome to another episode of SMWX. Today we are palapalistically evaluating Spiti. Did you hear that? Palapalistically evaluating Spiti. We're dissecting 3 issues in this particular episode. And you know your boy's ready. Hey, what are we dissecting? Number 1, the Jabulani Khumalo Spiti. That's number 1. Number 2, the consequences if the ANC does a deal with the DA. And number 3, the moral hazard created by the markets and the voices of the markets trying to determine what elected officials should choose. Let's go into issue number 1, PT 1. Hey, we've seen a lot today. So, as you know, Jabulani Khumalo says that, he's the real leader of the MK party, that he didn't really resign from the leadership position, that his letters were forged, etc., that when he was making speeches in public saying that I wrote 2 letters to the IEC and that Jacob Zuma is the real leader of the MK party, that somehow when he was making those videos in 4K in front of the Abantu fam, that somehow, somewhere, someplace, all of that didn't happen. So there's been allegations from members of the MK party that this man, he got a Land Cruiser from some dealership and that Land Cruiser changed his tune all the way. And as a result of that Land Cruiser incentive package, the Ankole package, that all of a sudden that this is the motive for doing this. So I don't want to talk about the Land Cruiser story because I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. All we know is that today, the leader of the MK party, as he was leaving, typically when politicians go to courts, like Julius Malema, when he goes to court, there'll be a stage set out by the party. You go outside, you say a few words. No, we will win this case around the issue of, if it was Julius, it would be, what was this thing that he was fighting recently right now? AfriForum. We have beat AfriForum in court. It would be that kind of a situation, You speak to the people, you tell them, white monopoly capital will not defeat us, etc., etc. That's if Julius was at the court, right? But no, Jabulani Khumalo, he came out of the court and his fans, the members of the party, they ran towards him. We want to talk, our leader, our dear leader. He saw them and he drove off. That Land Cruiser was moving so fast that he actually hit 2 cars on the way out. I don't know if the insurance covers any of that or what the arrangement is, but it's just an interesting piece of PT that we are seeing in this current dispensation, in this current age. I mean, how does it work again? And what is his aspiration here? If you cannot even have the chutzpah to talk to your people, the gumption to talk to your people, the gonads to talk to your people, how actually are you going to lead them? How are you going to give instruction? So let me give you a case study and tell you why this has all been happening. When the Zimbabwean elections concluded, a gentleman called Songezo Chabangu actually started issuing letters recalling members of the CCC party, which was at the time led by Nelson Chamisa. He claimed that he was the Secretary General of the party and that he was justified in removing them. And guess what? He succeeded. And many of those members of parliament lost their seats, and ZANU-PF in the by-elections then won their seats. And then a few months later, fast forward, Chabangu is now the leader of the CCC party. And the accusation is that he had been working with ZANU-PF all of the time to help them get a 2/3 majority, which they now have. If you recall, ZANU-PF was invited by particular individuals with large farms which sell particular breeds of animals to the international community, including people in Dubai, to come and help them with this particular election. This may be the origin of this particular story because that particular group of individuals is they are proficient in a series of skills. You know what Liam Nielsen says is that I have a particular set of skills. The gentlemen who come from the party from up north, right, they actually have these particular skills. And this is what it looks like the game was. But I don't think that this will succeed in the South African context. I think that the South African political market is different. And the strategies that were adopted by the ZANU-PF to undermine CCC and to destroy CCC are not going to work here. The leadership of Jacob Zuma when it comes to the NK party is very clear. The people who voted for the MK party are very clear who they were voting for, and Jabulani Khumalo will not be able in this particular framework to use these ZANU-PF tactics to gain control of the party. That much is clear. I'm moving on, and by the way, I've been listening to all of the arguments in the court today. I think that Advocate Jabu, I'm not saying Advocate Jabu, that man is not an advocate. Advocate Dali Mpofu, senior counsel, was very strong, and he did make it very clear that the arguments that were being made by Mr. Khumalo were irrational, that they were defamatory, and in fact, that this was a waste of the court's time. And I think that they will win that case easily. So even this legal strategy is not going to work. And the narrative that there's going to be this party that is fighting all the time, I think they will fight perhaps for different reasons. They will need to do a lot to create a real coherent policy, structure, framework, standard operating procedure, all of those things. But I don't think that in fighting, like what we saw in COPE, is going to happen. Jacob Zuma is a very strong leader and is not necessarily going to be swayed by these particular tactics. But in any event, it was hilarious watching the leader of the people. I saw two different things. I saw people running towards Jacob Zuma when he was at the IEC results center, and then I saw people running towards Jabulani Khumalo on the streets after he went to his court case, and the reactions were totally different because Zuma went to the people, whereas Khumalo, I'm sure he had a meeting on a farm somewhere in Limpopo. But anyway, let's move on to the second story, and this one is more serious and sober, so I have to change my tone. So there's been discussion around the prospects of a DA-ANC coalition, and I don't think that this particular coalition is going to be one that will find favor on the base of the ANC. There are different structures within the ANC. Some of those structures are occupied by elites who live in Sandton, who live in Kyalami, who live, in the cushy parts of Kushi. Kush is a drug. Kush is a softness level. They live in the cushy parts of Cape Town, the cushy parts of Johannesburg. These particular people are interested in continuity. They're interested in what's happening in the markets. But the base of the ANC is interested not in those particular incentives, not in those particular considerations. They are interested in the politics of class, they are interested in their socio-economic conditions, and they are looking forward to the upliftment of their socio-economic conditions. The Democratic Alliance has policies that are diametrically opposed to the policies of the ANC. When the ANC says that they want to provide a minimum wage, the DA wants to scrap a minimum wage. When the ANC says they want to provide worker protections, the DA wants to scrap worker protections. When the ANC says that they want to provide affirmative action policies to fix the injustices of apartheid, whether that be at university, in the workplace, or in business, the DA says that they oppose affirmative action policies. When the ANC says that they want inclusive language policies in universities, the ANC says that the DA says that they oppose inclusive language policies. You basically see where I'm going with this. The thing is not going to necessarily be appealing to the base of the ANC. Now, the question may be, can the ANC afford 5 years of selling out its voters in the name of stability? That, I think, will bury the party, because those voters will not experience a material change in their conditions, and the party will not be able to go back to them and say that we're working on doing ABC, because they will have gone to the very people who said we'll scrap their grants. Remember what the ANC was saying during the campaign: the DA will scrap your grants, the DA will scrap this, the DA will scrap that, the DA will scrap that. And then there's the very emotive issue of the sharing of power with the very same people that you were accusing of praising apartheid and colonialism to the victims of apartheid and colonialism. Many people will find that to be indigestible to them. So there's that issue. And there are some within the ANC who are speaking at this particular point saying, that's fine, we don't care, we're comfortable with doing this deal. But they've just been given 17 points of a loss in terms of their voter support. They've lost 4 million votes from the last election. Can they really afford to lose another 4 million and then become one of the 5th largest parties in South Africa? I don't think that's something that ANC members want to commit to, and they are aware of the risk. Now, the final topic I want to discuss is the markets. The markets have been very loud, and the spokespeople of the markets have been very loud. Who are these spokespeople? These are people who are chief investment officers at asset management companies, private equity companies, owners of private equity companies. And they have been saying, promising that the rand will go to 1750 if the DA and ANC make a coalition, but the rand will just free fall if the ANC makes a coalition with the EFF, with MK, or any other entities on the left. They oppose a left-leaning coalition. Never mind that the country has been led by a left-leaning party for 30 years, and they made serious profits. Never mind that. There's a question that I want to ask. When people vote, they do so in a process called democracy. And the purpose of democracy is that those who govern do so with the consent of the governed. They acquire a mandate from the public. They acquire a mandate from the public, and that mandate then gives them the line of march. So if you campaign on a manifesto saying, I am going to give you public health care, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then people say, I like that, go and do that, here is my vote. What then happens when people who are very influential and have money, influential in a monetary sense, then come and say, no, but if you do that, I will sell your currency and buy US dollars at such a large volume that your currency will lose its value? Is that something that is ethically correct? And is that something that is not a usurpation of democracy by those actors? We have to ask ourselves a very serious question. At what point can democracy be captured by financial markets? And at what point should people push back against those financial markets? And at what point should those officials of these investment companies who speak on behalf of shareholders and not on behalf of voters be called to order and told that they are out of line? I don't have all the answers to these questions, so I'm going to put them to you and ask, let's have a conversation in the comment section. I'm going to be there. Sizwe's going to be there. We're all going to be there. Let's have a conversation. Yeah. Remember, do all the usual things. Comment, like, subscribe, share. Let's do it. Let's bump this up. 250,000. Why wait? By December. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this.